Afternoon, everyone. This is Kiana, and today we are going to be talking about President Biden not seeking re election. Now, we understand how we got here, but of course, we are going to go through these points. Before we do, please subscribe to this channel at Real Kiana Canada. You can also follow me on Twitter at Kiana_Canada. So let's get into it. How did the Democrats get here? So we know that President Biden announced on Sunday that he would not seek re election. Now, this decision came after Biden's poor debate performance and concerns about his health. Now, we're not going to actually get into those uh, concerns about Biden's health. I think that we already know what those are and how that played out over the last few weeks, if not over the last 4 years. And it's something that happens to the best of us. But moving on, as we know that there was an exodus of Democrats that called on President Biden to stand down. So after that debate performance where President Biden actually debated former President Donald Trump, there were some issues, of course, that we know that happened and some concerns that happened during that debate that called for President Biden to stand down. Now, subsequently, Biden actually participated in a number of interviews that were unscripted. And I don't think that that alleviated the concerns that the constituency had about his performance and about his ability to serve in the presidency. So, this election was becoming a referendum, as you know, on President Biden's health. It was no longer about what he did in the past or what he was doing over the past 4 years or what he could do. It was becoming more about, could he make it through this term and could he actually serve another 4 years? And that was deeply concerning to a lot of Democrats. And it was also concerning to the constituency. Now, Biden was also absent from the Undidos conference, and this is a conference that serves the Hispanic community. And what they do is research, policy analysis, and state and national advocacy efforts. And Biden was absent from this particular conference, which was very important to the Hispanic community. There were some speculation and uh, statements that President Biden couldn't actually remember why he was going to be at this particular conference, and there were some statements that were posted that maybe he forgot his speech. Whether that's true or not, we're not going to get into that, but these are the concerns, and this is the reason why President Biden is not seeking re-election. Also, a number of Democrats have stated that the numbers are showing that President Biden just cannot win this election. And that, I believe, was difficult for President Biden to come to terms with. President Biden was defiant about the polling, and he felt that the polling showed different numbers. Whether that is true remains, is debatable. But at any rate, I believe that what the poll showed is that President Biden had like a 36% approval rating. And the argument was that no president with that approval rating or incumbent president would be reelected, of course, with those numbers. So that was concerning for the Democratic Party. So I believe that that's how the Democrats got here. That's just some background. And next is what President Biden decided to do was he decided to endorse Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, there's some, I want to say there's concerns within the Democratic Party about uh, Vice President Kamala Harris being a viable candidate for the Democratic Party. And there's some reasons that we'll get into. But will a Kamala Harris presidency help the Democrats? On one hand, yes, because Vice President Kamala Harris has a lot of support. That support is coming from, of course, Joe Biden, who endorsed uh, Vice President Kamala Harris, which she will have access to the campaign funds. Now, there are some questions whether she will have access to all those campaign funds. There has been some Republican strategists and lawyers that are stating that because Kamala Harris, her presidency and her candidacy wasn't sealed in at a specific time, that this means that she will not have access to those Biden funds. So, is someone going to file a lawsuit about that? Remains to be seen. But at this point, Vice President Kamala Harris has the support of the NAACP, the Black Caucus, uh, and there's Democratic Black women who want to see Vice President Kamala Harris as the President of the United States. However, this candidacy does not come, you know, this candidacy that involves Vice President Kamala Harris. There is some concerns there because uh, AOC revealed that high ranking Democrats did not want VP Harris on the ticket. She uploaded that video to TikTok and she stated that there were some talks with some high ranking Democratic officials that were stating that they wanted to remove the entire ticket. So, is Kamala Harris going to be the nominee? We don't know. If she's not going to be the nominee, that's going to create more infighting within the uh, within the Democratic Party. And that's not what they need right now. They don't need more division. They need to show unity. And we understand right now that the Trump campaign and the Republican Party are showing that they are united. They're putting up a united front for Trump, and the Democratic Party seems more divisive and divided now than ever. So, other questions or other statement arguments that are being put out there is that Vice President Harris did not have the voter support in 2020 when she ran. And voters did not pick Vice President Kamala Harris as the vice president, that this was all the Democratic National Convention that did this. And so I believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is, this is going to be an uphill battle for the Democratic Party because of this particular candidacy, because the constituents did not pick Vice President Kamala Harris for vice president, that this was a pick that came from the DNC. But of course, there is the argument that the DNC, those delegates are the constituency and that those votes matter. So, in essence, the constituency did pick her. So, let's move on. So, do the Democrats know their constituency? That is the question. And I'm going to say the Democrats don't understand who their constituency is. So the Democrats have a large portion of the Democratic Party is Black Americans. And Black Americans have rescued the Democratic Party through a number of elections because Black Americans are loyal to this particular party. Now, the Democratic Party has not delivered on what this constituency wants. And so let's look at that. So the the Black constituency, this is what I've been hearing, and this is what I've been following for the last 4 or 5 years, is that Black Americans really want legislation to protect them from, or to protect us, because I'm a Black American too, and these are the things that I want as well. It's to protect us from racial profiling, police brutality, and the lethal use of force by police. And this also includes unlawful and unwarranted surveillance by the Federal Bureau of Investigation and just intimidation by the state. This is what Black Americans want, and we're not getting that. So there's also the Black trans community. We're seeing we're seeing a number of homicides with Black trans women being unalived. We recently seen a Black trans woman named Taylor Casey, who unfortunately there was an enforced disappearance in the Bahamas at the Sivananda Ashram yoga retreat. And there hasn't seemed to be enough energy and investigation around this young woman coming up missing. So we understand that there is the LGBTQ community within, of course, there's the Black LGBTQ persons, but you normally hear about the Black trans community being disenfranchised and being marginalized and suffering from fatal violence at the hands of a number of people. So do the Democrats know this, and what are they doing about it? Yes, it's important for the Democrats to say that they are going to protect Black trans women, that they have the backs of Black trans women, and that's important, but there needs to be action behind those words. There needs to be action behind, uh, stating that the Democratic Party is against racialized violence in the United States. There needs to be change, and we haven't seen that change. There is also some arguments that it's still not uh, economically equal, and I agree. There's not any economic equity and equality, that Black Americans are still behind, of course. After Reconstruction and during the Jim Crow era, there were still some issues that caused Black Americans to be disenfranchised and not have the same equality of opportunities and the same uh, equality of chances as their counterparts, our counterparts, which are, of course, are white Americans. Another important issue that I heard recently was the maternal protections. Black Americans are looking for the Democrats to really protect Black women and the maternity rate. They're really uh, focused in on that. And then I watched an important video where Black Americans are talking about fair hiring practices, reentry, and reintegration. There is still collateral consequences that are stopping Black Americans from being able to reintegrate successfully into society. Not only are these collateral consequences, these collateral consequences impact Black Americans' ability to get housing, to gain employment, to gain services, or to access services rather. And we understand that in the United States, there is a problem with mass incarceration, which is called the new Jim Crow, and that Black Americans make up a large percentage of the prison population. And this has, of course, been a pipeline from the school to prison pipeline, or the neighborhood, the urban neighborhood to prison pipeline. There's been a pipeline to prison within the United States. And we still haven't seen a change in this. And in another video, we are going to get into this more deeply. But at this point, this is what Black Americans, this is still what the Democratic Party has not done for their constituency. And there hasn't been any improvement. And next is reparations for past injustices. We're going to spend a lot of time on this in another video. Black Americans are still calling for reparations for slave descendants and for uh, the victims of the Tulsa Race Massacre. Now, we understand that in history, the United States has given reparations to a number of marginalized groups. The US Constitution, especially, I believe the 14th Amendment, is made for this, is made for actually protecting marginalized communities. And the Constitution allows for reparations. And it's, you, there, we're still questioning why the Black community still has to, you know, plead for this to happen. These are all the concerns that the Democrats have not done for their constituency, despite having a loyal constituency. And to prove this point, or actually to support this argument, as we've seen when there was an exodus from the Democrat Party, when there was a group of people, there were dozens of Democrats that were calling on President Joe Biden to step down. You did not see the Black Caucus, the NAACP, or many of the Black Democrats coming out and speaking on Joe Biden to step down. And this shows the loyalty that the Black Democrats had to Joe Biden. Excuse me, the loyalty that the Black Democrats have for this particular president. So the question remains is, why hasn't this president remained loyal to his constituency? So let's move on. So the Democrats also have the white liberals as their constituency. And what the white liberals seek is abortion protections. Now, remember that all of this is not an exhaustive list. This is just some things that were off the top of my head that I can remember in the recent news cycles. But they are also concerned with LGBTQ issues, climate issues, but this is more Green Party issues. And more so, the white liberals want to beat Donald Trump. This is really within their, uh, you know, this is something that they really, really want. There's just this competition between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and the white liberals really want, or I'll say the white liberals don't want to have another Trump presidency. Of course, Black Americans don't want another Trump presidency as well, because we understand that what comes with this presidency is uh, dismantling of our protections. So, in essence, I think my I am inclined to say that the Democratic Party knows this particular constituency. They understand uh, that the reversal, the repealing of Roe v. Wade was a problem, and they've spoken very critically about that. They have spoken very critically about the LGBTQ issues in the United States. They've spoken loud and clear about climate issues, and they've made it known that they really want to beat Donald Trump. So, in essence, the Democratic Party knows this particular constituency. Other constituencies of the Democratic Party is Hispanic and the Latinx community. And of course, the Democrats know this constituency. They understand that uh, Hispanics in the Latinx community wants fair immigration policies. They don't want the Trump administration to repeal the DACA program. They also want fair wages. They want elimination of racial profiling. We understand that in the United States, Hispanics and Latinx people are often racially profiled. And uh, uh, so I would say they're racially profiled by law enforcement and, of course, ICE officials. Uh, and the way that this profiling works is they're often confused with immigrants or, coming across the border illegally when they haven't. And so this hasn't changed. There's been a lot of racial profiling upon this particular community. So I believe that the Democrats understand this constituency quite well and has been doing some there has been progress with this particular constituency. Uh, we understand that there has been issues with immigration and that everything is not perfect and that there's still problems, but just over the past few years and looking at policies, I am inclined to say that the Democratic Party knows this particular constituency quite well. Now, there are other constituencies within the Democratic Party, such as the Arab community, uh, the Asian community. These are very important communities as well. And I'll have to make another video about that. And because these are actually tying into a separate issue. But at this point, I believe that the Democrat Party does not understand Black Americans and what Black Americans are truly wanting when they vote. And they're not following through on their promises to Black Americans when Black Americans put them in office. And I think that this is quite problematic. Now, let's go to the Republican Party. So, who are the constituents of the Republican Party? So, the constituents of Donald Trump's Republican Party are conservative white Americans. And these conservative white Americans are keen on implementing this Project 2025. And what is it that conservative white Americans want? Conservative white Americans want elimination of affirmative action. Donald Trump has done that. Conservative white Americans want a border wall. Donald Trump has done that. Conservative white Americans want elimination of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI programs. Donald Trump is doing that and has done that. Conservative white Americans want dismantling of abortion rights. Donald Trump has done that. Conservative white Americans want gun protections for conservatives. Donald Trump has done that. Conservative white Americans want religious protections. Donald Trump has done that. Conservative white Americans want dismantling of LGBTQ rights. And this has to do with bathroom bills, sports bills, school bills, family bills. Donald Trump and the Republican Party has done that. And this is why the Republican Party or Donald Trump is so favored among his constituency is because he has delivered on all of the policies or tried to deliver on all the policies that his constituency wants. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some Black conservatives within the movement, which are, of course, we know that there is Tim Scott, there is there's some others like Candace Owens and Tim Scott and other Black conservatives, and you see their name is not really ringing a bell to me because that's how not important that their voice is in this particular movement. Now, I'm not going to say Candace Owens, her voice isn't important in the conservative movement, because a lot of conservatives do listen to Candace Owens and they do follow her, you know, they follow, I won't say advice, but what they're doing is they're listening to her and they're taking what she says under advisement. I'll say that. And she has a loud voice and she's very popular. But we understand that the voices that are louder than Candace Owens, the voices that are louder than Tim Scott, are the white conservatives. And the white conservatives have implemented policies that, or even spoken out about what they want, and that speaking out about what they want has been placed or actually written down and put into legislation and passed and became law. And again, Donald Trump has followed through on his commitment to this constituency. And I think that this is what the Democratic Party needs to understand. This is a time for the Democratic Party to take a step back and to really examine who their constituency is and ask themselves, have they been honoring the their promises to this constituency? Have they actually been honoring what this constituency wants from them? That is questions that the Democratic Party and the leaders needs to reflect on, which I don't think that they have. And this is the perfect time to do it. In order to gain the votes, you have to follow through on your commitments and you have to follow through on your promises to your constituency. That's what you have to do. This video is about to end. We will get into those promises in another video, but this is Kiana. And don't forget to follow me at Real Kiana Canada. You can also follow me on Twitter at Kiana_Canada. Again, that is Kiana_Canada. Bye-bye.